you're identifying the key players in the digital transformation ecosystem here, because you can't. I always consider systemic change, and again, we've both been in it for a while now. It's a Jenga game. Like, you have to be very strategic about the blocks you're pulling, because the blocks you pull, if you pull the wrong one, it falls apart because of fear, of fixed mindsets, of this default to go, like you say, back to basics. And I think ChatGPT and the introduction of ChatGPT and AI has just been a perfect microcosm of the problem with why digital transformation hasn't been as, what's the word we want to use? Hasn't been as effective or streamlined in North America. You know, if we want to consider the American and Canadian context here, digital transformation has been funded now through the COVID pandemic, has been researched. There's tons of evidence about it. So why is it not happening? The players in this ecosystem, either individually are not equipped with what they need, like we talked about at that administrative level. They don't have that complementary skill set. It's not required of people being hired in these spaces to know how to run a business, leverage technology, and teach and learn effectively. And also, like you say, those grassroots, you know, how are the parents being mobilized? How are the teachers coming together to mitigate adoption attitudes or fear around technology? Have you seen any districts doing a great job of mobilizing teachers as a grassroots force? Like, let's do this, guys. We can do this. Let's transform.
Absolutely. But I will share with you that, the insight we garnered from our panel was not alarming. I already knew some of the challenges. The teacher shortages are right across the country. That's as a result of demographics, the baby boom population. The pandemic has led to people saying, you know what, I'm done. I got a couple of years left. I can go now. I'm done. People just want to enjoy their lives. The burnout amongst teachers and students is real in K-12, and I think in higher ed too, maybe less so. But that's part of it. The professional learning piece, they can't pull teachers out of class. So it needs to be job-embedded learning. And the think tank out of, and I'll get you the name of it, it made our top 10 trends in EdTech last year. 85% of tech installations they found in schools fail. 85%. And I point to this. When I was asking the superintendents about spending and analyzing the data and usage, tracking and determining whether or not they re-sign an application, that really isn't happening. It's easy to spend other people's money and not worry about it. If that was coming out of your pocket, would you not want to know the value of investment, or the RO or return on education, as I call it, the return on achievement? I've coined the phrase return on achievement. That it happens in some districts more so. The Americans are data crazed. They, and I think that stems from their passion with baseball. Our hockey is becoming more analytical, but our hockey, and way to go Leafs last night, you're awesome. We never used to count shot blocks and hits and I don't need to hear that. They're trying to be more like baseball. It's so irrelevant to hockey. We just play the game. I actually play 3 times a week still. I play with the faculty guys at York. Ian McDonald retired at 92, so I got a long way to go. But I think the analytics and understanding the impact, data-driven decision-making, that was the theme of our EdTech Summit this past year. It was about driving innovation through evidence-based research. That was the theme.
And it's interesting because data has a place. And it does have a place in terms of that informed decision-making. But I agree with you that there are these drill down analytics now that can at times be filled with biases, depending on the algorithms used to determine some of these scores. And there's this idea of data for the sake of data. And it connects to the industrial model to me a little bit. This idea of craftsmanship. It's like holistic. It's like we're playing the game. We're here together. We're in this situation. Like I've taught for many years in the alternative education system here in Toronto. And,
Right.
it was week by week. There were things you had to do, but it wasn't, you checked them off, but it wasn't a micromanaged environment. And it was more holistic. And this word has been thrown around now as being a key element of well-being, that we're more than just the sum of our parts. There's something much more nuanced to learning and to being human. And so if we get data crazed, as it were, we can start to be very reductionist in terms of what learning actually is and looks like, versus data on practice-based methodologies, where it's like, what worked when I did project-based learning? What worked in this experiential education task? That kind of data, that research is where I think I'm focusing a lot of my energies at York University, documenting innovation. But again, it comes back to the mindset piece, because really I'm documenting not to share with the believers, Robert, not because I want to publish and share them with you, because you're like, yeah, of course, that's great, Michelle.
Yeah.
It's really as a tool to help shift the culture of technology enhanced teaching and learning practices for the 21st century.
So fascinating. So this morning I had a podcast with Peter Skillen, who is leading the Code to Learn initiative as their project manager and curriculum lead. And so they're partnering with LCSI, which was founded by Dr. Seymour Papert. My first interview at Pepperdine doing my master's, I met him at a think tank, and I said to Peter, how do we capture this history? I was invited to reimagine the future computer in education with 40 brilliant minds. I had my client research machines out of the UK, and I was honored to be there with Angus King, the governor, Dr. Seymour Papert, founder of ASCII. It was seminal. Like, this was a groundbreaking meeting, and it was such an honor to be there. And Dr. Papert and I had a conversation. It was my first podcast. We had to interview Dr. Stager, was another one like Greg Malzecki, project-based learning, interview a notable edtech person that or met. And so Papert was his buddy. And it's like, why is he responding to your emails and not mine? I said, why? I'll try to arrange for you to talk to him. He got so mad at me. So at any rate, what we talked about was, why are we always looking for the next shiny object when something's worked? He created logo language in the 60s. He envisioned the first computers in the 60s. Things were working that they did, and then they kind of got lost in the shuffle with all this other technology. And I said to Peter, who was with the district school, with TDSB in North York School District, this guy's a legend, like 5 decades plus. And I said, how does it feel to come of age? How does it feel to finally coding is at the fort, like it is embedded in K-12? He'd been talking about this for 40 plus years, as did Papert, or 50. Unbelievable. So we have to be mindful of history, and things don't don't break, don't fix what's not broken, right? Like let's use the right tool at the right time. A hammer still exists. I have a hammer. I've been using a hammer forever. It's in my toolbox.
The Texas Instrument calculator still exists.
Yeah. I use my hammer when I need the hammer, right? Use the right tool at the right time. It's not about using something fancy. It's got to be purposeful.
So this, right? I think, takes us naturally to the term digital transformation, because how do you define that? Is it about intentional use of technology for 21st, and we can dive into, that term if you say 21st century learning, but is it how, because I feel like we use the word tool a lot and when we speak of technology, and I feel like, I'm not sure what the next word is, Robert, but I feel like we're beyond tool. Like
tool,
we're now into almost like a model. Like there's a model of working and being that leverages technology in multiple forms and in different ways,
right?
Or I'm not sure, and it takes me up.
I mean, we use app a lot now. App. It's about apps. I attended a session. Yeah. I attended a session that Dell had an education roadshow, and Dell was Microsoft was presenting. You would not believe the number. They've solved all the problems of education because they got an app for that. Everything. And this guy, my head was spinning. All he kept doing was showing little clips of videos. He wasn't demoing, he was just showing all these videos. I'm like, we just saw 10. I caught half of it. He put people through an hour of all these apps, just watching clips. I'm like, that is so awful to experience.
Yeah.
Like, instead of giving you something to try and hands-on learning, but I was going to say that it's about an ecosystem. Digital transformation is about bringing it all together. It's not about one thing sitting on its own. I remember, I was co-founder of the Connect conference down in Niagara, and we had Robert Hertzevig from Dragon's Den speak. And Robert said, and this was 2014, maybe 15. He said, I am not buying any technology that isn't connected to the internet. That was his thing back then. So this hydroponic garden set, why doesn't it have a camera, an IoT camera? Why doesn't it have sensors for measuring water, moisture, and temperature? That's some of the advice we gave this startup that launched this product. So, if they want to become embedded and cross-curricular, then all of a sudden you're infusing coding, and you're making it cross-curricular, and kids are able to see their plant from home, growing on their phone app, right? So that's the notion of digital transformation. It's an ecosystem.
It's
That's
all
part of it. And it's a mindset. And it's a
Yeah.
mindset. It's a
Yeah.
mindset. And I asked someone I was interviewing not long ago, is the growth mindset a teachable skill? And they said, so that's the debate now. We talk about growth mindset. Is it a teachable skill? Do we need to revisit our 7 C's that we created as part of C21 a number of years ago? The growth mindset is definitely part of that.
This is one of, and now I'd like to just dive into the different roles that different stakeholders play in this ecosystem. So you mentioned C21, Canada 21. And this is can you tell us a little bit more about that organization and the kind of role an organization like that plays when it comes to the digital transformation at a national or provincial level?
Right. So, we, a dozen years ago, and this launched out of York University, Dr. Ron Elston, Professor Emeritus, Dean Emeritus, was part of it. And we reached out. So former Deputy Minister in New Brunswick and I and a bunch of leaders got together. And it was about the frustration of lack of transformation and change. And we were looking at the future, and it was about driving innovation and Canadians for 21st Century Learning and Innovation is the tagline, and it still exists today. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary last year, and I'm co-founder and CEO of that organization. It's a not-for-profit, and we're not done yet. We're not. We thought that maybe this thing would last 5 years. We had no idea when we created. I remember sitting in the Tell Building classroom where we hosted our first EdTech Summit, staring at everyone around the table and saying, okay, are you in? Are you in? Are you in? Because people needed to invest. IBM, taking it global, Dell, Microsoft, like there were a York University, Faculty of Education, there were a multitude of Pearson, Marty Keese from Pearson. All of them said, we're in, because they all had a passion to make an impact and see change happen more rapidly.
So one of the things I love about the organizations that you work with, like Mindshare Learning as well as C21, is the composition. And this is why I ask in terms of their role in digital transformation at a national level, because these groups are comprised of multiple stakeholders from across the system. So
cross sector,
right? Academic representation. You've got governmental at times representation.
Yeah, not for profit.
Not for profits, and you've got business representatives, ed tech, industry partners. So there's this kind of integrated way of, do you feel like the role of these organizations is in, for example, unpacking the problem and providing solutions? Is it in holding space to have discourse and dialogue? Is it to make recommendations?
Advocacy, right? So we're hosting our C21 CO Summit at TMU and Microsoft in a month from now. And we have about 50 people gathering that are district CEOs, the same ecosystem. You know, we have the TMU president is going to speak. They were so excited to partner with us, and we have industry and education leaders and government. So the theme is around technology is a big part of it, but so is well-being, diversity, inclusion, and well-being, and all those issues. You know, we're focused on First Nations and truth and reconciliation. We were at the Museum of Human Rights last year in Winnipeg, and that was, if you haven't been there, if I can do a commercial for this podcast, if you've never been, make it a point once in your lifetime. You could spend a whole week in that museum. First of all, the architecture is unrivaled, and the artifacts there are just, it's such an immersion into, you know, truth and reconciliation and history, rich in history. And it was just so impactful for everybody. So that's what we do. We focus on trends and helping scale innovation through our national learning community. So we have monthly, this is interesting. So if you want to see change happen on scale, we have a professional learning network that meets monthly, and it's the network of district superintendents and CEOs. And we have one question, whether it's how do you deal with diversity inclusion, or how do you deal with cybersecurity? We pick one question, and then they all spend 2 minutes talking about how they deal with the challenge. And the learning that happens in that hour is unparalleled. The partnerships that are forged, the community that is so strong and valued, so valued, because they can't have those conversations on that scale, unfiltered, private, and the investment of their time to share and learn from each other, because we all have different lenses, right? So we all solve problems. We have common problems, but we have different ways of approaching a solution.
And this is where I love the way you're framing the core element of digital transformation being this notion of partnership. And, you know, I can't help but think about the brain and this idea of, if we're talking about a system like there's so many different, there are bigger systems, smaller systems like the respiratory system, the circulatory system, and then you've got this hub called the brain, and you kind of, signals are in there, and you make, like you bring these people together, and then the data, computes, and then the signals get sent out to the rest of the networks of systems that then, scale those things or expand the reach of those things or get the messages out to the masses, as it were. So it's like you bring these people together, these kinds of strategic partnerships that you build, and you're creating this exponential impact in the system at large, because those nodes go out into their individual networks. So I want to ask how, because of this is a skill, Robert, you do it very naturally, building partnerships with people, building relationships with people, bringing groups of people together. If you could give advice to someone who is interested in having that kind of exponential impact, or looking at their individual system and saying, you know what, I have to bring diverse members of this ecosystem together to talk about digital transformation. So you've given this example of try to make a space that allows them to share their experiences. But any other advice you would offer people on how to bring people together, on how to forge these kinds of meaningful partnerships?
Right. I think it's so important to be part of diverse communities. I was a commuter student at York. I didn't get fully engaged till third year when I discovered the Sport of Men program, played hockey, and I found my tribe, right? Find your tribe. And I'm still a fellow at Stong. I'm part of the faculty hockey team. I'm founder of our community association in our community. I started the Canadian EdTech Alliance. I do all these things because I feel I can make an impact. And through my evolution of my career, and it's been very organic, right? I had to learn. I learned by doing, and I hockey was my outlet, and that hockey led me to where I am. Focus on the gifts that you have as an individual, and mine was hockey. It got me to where I am today, and I still have my cert. I actually play at 4:00 today, so that's game 3 this week.
Idea of team, like you. So
team.
Thinking teams, think that team mindset. You were predisposed to it, like I say, it comes very natural to you. So that makes sense. It does. That you have that kind of embedded, that sports team mentality embedded in
right.
you. And it's really you can see it, how you made your whole professional career about teams. And
right.
And so then, and you also want to be on teams, like have the team mindset, but then also get out there and get in communities that already exist. And you could find ways to organically potentially knit those communities together, as opposed to artificially going out and trying to forge a new community of people. Try to tap into the communities that exist. I think that's really great.
Find the gaps. Find the gaps. And the reality is, not everyone wants to achieve excellence. Not everyone wants to be a leader. So there's a place for everyone in the game. Not everyone wants to be a leader. Not everyone wants to strive for excellence. So when we're trying to push the digital transformation curve forward, you're going to get your resistors. But as one former mayor, superintendent down east once said, and he was a minister as well, this guy did everything, incredible person I interviewed, said, you know what, sometimes you got to bring them along kicking and screaming, but they'll come, right? And so as long as you have the critical mass, and I think a vice principal once said, if you get 15% of the teachers that want to transform, the rest will follow. So leadership is about mentorship. I see too many leaders that it's about them and they're not mentoring. I don't admire those leaders, because when they think, oh, I'm gone and it's not going to sustain, that's not what it's about. When I move on, I want it to continue to exist. And then we see a lot of examples where the next person comes in and it doesn't continue. They've done great work, but that's about nurturing leadership, and the system has a role to play in that. Because the outgoing principal doesn't always have, if I use K-12 as an example, they don't always have control over who's coming in. And then all the great work that they did, I've seen numerous examples of that. All the great work they did just gets unraveled. And that's, so you need to bake that into your mission and vision and school improvement, district improvement plan.
And the culture, right? So it's not about you pushing a vision forward. It's about culture. It's about digital transformation, Robert. Look how we did that.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
We came around. I like to end with a few just like quick fire questions. So complete this sentence for me, whatever pops into your head first.
Okay.
Teaching is
a calling.
Ooh, I would agree. Learning is
unlimited.
Oh, doesn't always feel that way. Education systems are
primed for transformation.
I love it. Perfect. And then the two last questions, I'm going to start with the fear and we'll end with the hope, Robert. What's something that scares you about the potential future of education? Like, we're in it. There's a lot. We're at a precipice everyone talks about. We're primed here for transformation. But what scares you about the potential, what this uncertain future might look like?
That that great people that would be great teachers are detracted from becoming joining the profession because of a lot of the negativity that surrounds it.
Yeah, yes. And with already a shortage, what's going to happen? And again, like you said at the beginning, teachers is the focal point of the education system. I couldn't agree.
I think I heard in the US, like 3 in 5 teachers is thinking of leaving the profession in the next 5 years. It's extremely high.
And yet we're not focusing.
They're not as respected in the US, generally speaking. They're not as well paid.
Yes.
Canadian teachers are way better off. So I hope they stay put.
I mean, I know, I don't want to belabor this, but then one of the things that I noticed just presenting in the United States was even something as simple. I mean, it's not simple, but universal healthcare that we enjoy in Canada, right? When you don't have healthcare as a teacher in the US, taking off work.
They don't?
No, they don't have healthcare. They don't have, and then you have to pay into it, and some opt out. So it's not universal. So some have, some don't.
Some states are better,
but you don't have Canadian national health,
right,
where you don't have to worry if your kid is sick. They can go to the doctor. That apparently is a huge stressor on as well teachers during COVID. You can only imagine how that would have played out.
Yeah, that would be huge.
It's all an ecosystem.
In contrast to many of our wonderful educators who make sure they take every possible day.
And on that
God
note,
bless them.
What is something you're hopeful about, Robert, for the future of education?
You know, we have a co-op student here from the local high school. We're surrounded by a lot of students on a regular basis. We host them here. And I am hopeful that the students of this next generation give me hope, because I see the talent and passion that they have to want to make an impact. So these sustainable development goals, they embrace them. They are innovating. They want to do startups, and the startups that they're focused on are SDGs and just environmentally sensitive and just really good people, you know, and that's what gives me hope. Our next generation of awesome leaders like Adila. See you, Adila. Yeah.
Well, they've been
awesome.
They've definitely benefited from the mentorship and that role that you've played in their lives, Robert. And I have.
Well, it's a mutual mentorship, right? It's a give and take. We learn so much from our young people. When you give them agency, when you give these kids agency, the sky's the limit. They help me solve problems all the time because I have a vision, a lens, and they have a different lens. So it's great. It keeps us youthful.
And I look forward to sharing our various lenses, continuing to have conversations from our lenses in the future, Robert.
Yeah, thank you so much for this.
The time. The Education Revolution podcast is produced in-house by community members. And I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Sangera. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and head over to my website to opt in for my newsletter for more ways to connect with some of these big ideas.